What is up guys, Stu here. So another one of the films I was lucky enough to catch at this year's London Film Festival was the UK premiere of The Battle of the Sexes. So let's talk about that shit. So The Battle of the Sexes, if you have not heard about it, is a biopic telling the true story of Billie Jean Riggs, who was a world #1 in female tennis in the 70s, who had a big old match against an ex-champion, Bobby Riggs, who essentially challenged any female tennis player to come up and beat him in a match in a time when the kind of gender divide is really at its peak. There's a lot of questions about pay and equal pay between the genders in the field of tennis specifically. And as I said, this one's directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris, who are the duo behind films like Little Miss Sunshine, which is a fucking wonderful film. I love that one. I'm happy to say that this one continues their trend of delivering really delightful little films. I had a really great time with The Battle of the Sexes. The film's led by Emma Stone, who plays Billie Jean Riggs, and Emma Stone, you know I love Emma Stone. And I don't think this is her best performance, but she does do a really fantastic job here. It's a very charged up performance from Emma Stone, but it's also one which has got some really interesting moral dilemmas in there about her sexuality and what's the right thing to do in certain situations. And so that side of things playing into it, Emma Stone does a fantastic job with that. It's a film with a lot of emotion in it. But alongside her, we've got Steve Carell, who's playing one of those really clearly very fun roles to play. He's this very kind of egotistical wanker, essentially. He's a knobhead. It's a funny role. It's a comedic role, and there's a lot of moments in the film which create a lot of comedy from him, particularly towards the beginning. But at the same time, the sort of character you really don't like this guy. And I always like watching Steve Carell in roles where he's playing someone you don't like, because it's too easy to like Steve Carell. So when I see him in a role, I'm like, you're a dickhead. Get on you, Steve. But really, it's his characters clashing with Emma Stone's that creates the central drama in this film, and the two of them do fantastic work together on screen. But there's also a bunch of really great names giving fantastic little side performances here and there in the film. Andrea Riseborough, to name one, was really great in the film. Surprised me. She kind of plays the secret love interest of Billie Jean, and she does a fantastic job there. I love watching those two together. I love watching their relationship bloom. I thought those two worked fantastically on screen together. But the direction here does a really good job to kind of, on one hand, keep it really light-hearted and delightful, whilst dealing with a topic which is incredibly heated. It's still incredibly relevant even today, 40 years on from when this film was set. As an audience, you're much more likely to confront certain issues if they've got you on board and they're making you laugh as well. And then they're suddenly like, hey, think about this. But it's funny, but think about this, yeah? You're thinking. I find myself much more likely to side with and think through a topic if I'm laughing with it, you know? And it's also not afraid to laugh at itself a bit, which I think is really welcome here. But the tone that they're able to bring to it is a similar one to most of the films they've done before, in which you just can't help but get sucked up in the delightfulness of it all. You're going through it. I just found myself smiling a lot throughout this one. It is a really enjoyable watch. It never really dips for me. The pace is constantly rattling through. I was never bored. The title suggests it's going to be about this one match between these two people, and that is essentially where it all ends up going. But they take the time to really effectively lay a lot of groundwork before that, so when you get to the actual match that the title's suggesting, there's a lot weighing on it. You really do feel it. It does get very tense. And even though most of the audience probably knows where it's going, it still manages to keep itself feeling very tense. And there's a lot at stake here for pretty much everyone in the film. The main characters have their very conflicting opinions, and you clearly side with one over the other, but you still don't feel like they just become these kind of black and white caricatures. And the kind of dilemmas that are facing Billie Jean as a character throughout this are really interestingly explored as well. I particularly loved everything regarding her sexuality and her relationship with this hairdresser that she meets at the beginning of her tour. It is really well woven into the film, and at a certain point it is almost a little bit more of a romance between these two characters than it is about her and the gender pay and all that stuff with the match. I think on the whole it does a good job of balancing the different threads there. That was really welcome. Although that's where we do start to get into some of my negatives with the film, some things holding it back. The main one of those is that it falls into the trap of a lot of things that are going for these very heated topic relevant social commentary. And that is that when you're dealing with stuff like this where there's so clearly bad guys here versus the good guys, a lot of the characters on the bad guys side, some of the side ones, just sort of walk in and a very kind of typically cliche, the heightened version of that bad side. And it's a different one to talk about because clearly sexism is very ingrained in society, even now, but in the 70s, it's heightened. People didn't really give a shit about what they're saying because they didn't think it was wrong. So obviously people are going to be talking like this, and having done a little bit of research afterwards, it does seem like the main characters in the film were just as sexist as they come off in the film in real life. But from a film standpoint, while I was watching it, certain characters will say things, and I'm like, that seems aggressively sexist. A little bit over the top, a little bit on the nose. I don't think it actually detracts from the film so much as it just holds it back from feeling a little bit more subtle. But I guess it's not really a film which is trying to be that subtle. It's got a message to say, and it's going to say it either way. I also think it inevitably falls into a lot of the kind of cliches and conventions of the kind of inspirational biopic thing, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing. I've got a lot of time for cheese and cliche, and if it's done effectively, which it is on the most part in this film, it really does work. But I don't know, there are some points where the kind of drama and emotion is somewhat undermined by how cliche and conventional the way it's handled is. And as a result of that, it does feel like there are some characters which just kind of fall in just to be there to do these kind of typical moments that you need to have in a biopic so they can feel a little bit expendable. Particularly a lot of the other female players in the group. I understand that it's 100% a film about Billie Jean King, so this isn't too much of a problem, but at first it sets them up at this big group that are all doing the right thing as a collective unit to try and put a lot of pressure on the male side of the sport, but then it kind of dwindles into this sole look at one character. I feel like the other players get a little bit forgotten about and just sort of end up brushing around in the background, which is a shame. But yeah, at the end of the day, I thought Battle of the Sexes was a really delightful little time. It's got a really fun, light-hearted little tone to it, but it also knows when to get real, and it's got a really important message to get across. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a very solid little 4 stars. But what about you guys? Have you seen Battle of the Sexes yet? I know it literally just came out over in the States, so if you've had a chance to check it out now, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. That'd be amazing. And as usual, if you like this review and you want to see me talk about more shit, please go ahead and click subscribe. But until next time, stay beautiful, mother truckers. Spaghetti Bolognese, back with that cheeky old playlist that loves popping up at the end of these videos. Well, it just won't go anywhere. It just loves popping up. Yeah, it's just here by my finger on the screen. Click it if you want to check any other reviews from the film festival this year that I got out and saw. There's a bunch of them in there, so have a little scroll with your finger. This got weird. Yeah.